Here we go. We're going to talk about the most important question that you can ever ask. Right, and here's the question. Are you going to buy a Cybertruck? I think this is a legit question. It's an important question.
You ended our friendship over sour cream. I am now going to end our friendship over that ugly...
That was so last episode ago.
Truck.
Chad.
I know.
It's an electric truck.
It's a horrific truck of what people thought in the 80s trucks would look like in 2020.
It absolutely looks like that, but you can get from here to there with no gas.
It's made of stainless... Who needs a stainless steel vehicle?
Need is a funny word.
Well, I don't need a Tesla, but this is what makes me so angry. I love Tesla.
You can paint it to look like a warthog from Halo.
Everything God and Jesus say about sin in the Bible is referring to Cybertruck. I'm just leaving it there. So I am making that theological claim.
I feel like everybody, if they had a choice between like the Model 3 and just another car, would choose the Model 3 because it's amazing, it's cool.
Yes, Model S.
It gets them here to there with no gas, no oil changes.
The S, but you can get the SP100D with a dual motor and go from 0 to 60 faster than a crotch rocket motorcycle. Come on.
Okay, now we're getting a little nerdy here, but I won the Cybertruck. Okay,
you call me a nerd?
It's but
for money.
To answer the real question that we are going to answer today, which is not about Cybertruck, the real most important question that you can ever ask is, who is Jesus? The whole Bible really centers around the person of Jesus. And so many beliefs center around the person of Jesus. And definitely the one that does the most is the Christian faith, obviously. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ, Christians. And so the reason why it's such an important question is because of who Jesus claims to be. And so why I think it's the most important you can possibly ask is because it really defines your entire view of the world, your entire view of humanity, your view of God and his relationship to us, whether or not there is a God. It's all centered around who Jesus is. And everybody has to answer that question, and everybody does answer that question, whether or not they know that they have, because you have to make a decision about Jesus Christ. It's an absolutely necessary thing that you have to do when you're in this world. So,
and plenty of people would argue the opposite, that no, I can go throughout my life in this world from a materialistic or naturalistic standpoint, saying that I don't need to choose Jesus. There is no such thing as absolute truth. They live in this postmodern idea that all truth is relative, which is a self-defeating statement. Most of their arguments and objections to Jesus using logic are fallacious arguments that are full of straw men and ad hominem attacks.
In that case, you have made an answer to that question.
Oh, you've made a truth claim.
In saying that you don't believe that it's important enough to answer, that it's not important enough to look into, that...
Speaking of people that I would love to sponsor us, Starbucks. If anybody from Starbucks is watching, please, if you have any decency whatsoever,
we'll sell it for gift cards.
Gift cards. If you're a viewer and you just want to say, hey, thanks for what you're doing, guys, just send the gift cards to Life Point Church, 28479 North Main Street, Santa Fe, Arizona, 85143.
Going back to Jesus.
Attention, Joe and Chad.
Yeah, so...
That's 2 shows in a row I'm giving away our location.
Yes,
dang it,
Chad. We're not safe anymore. That's just the truth of it. We're gonna have to move locations, Chad, and we've already done that 3 times in 5 episodes, and this is episode 6, and we just can't afford it anymore. Chad, you're bankrupting our zero income from this show. But going back to Jesus, so in answering that, you believe that question is not worth answering. You are answering the question that Jesus is unimportant, that who he is, it doesn't matter, that he was not God. So I think that first, this is what we want to talk about is who does the Bible say that Jesus is, and why is that important?
Right. My computer says it's about to take off. What is using my...
So starting off.
Sorry.
Starting off, let's just start off in the Gospels about what we know about Jesus. And if we just go to his genealogy, first of all, he is the descendant of David, which means that he is a Jew. He was born to a Jewish mother. He was born...
Hold on a second. Jesus wasn't Christian?
No. Refer back to Who Started Christianity, episode 2 of that one show. Link right here. So his mother was Jewish. He was born of a virgin, and so Mary got pregnant from the Holy Spirit before she was even.
And someday we have to unpack the Mormon.
Yeah, so she was betrothed to Joseph, but they were not married yet. They had not had relations yet, and so how the whole story goes. But Jesus was a Jew, so that's the first thing to unpack. Second thing, he was human. He was a man. Now, when we go into John, the Gospel of John, it starts off the very first part of the Gospel of John says that in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and everything was made through the Word that was made, and he holds all things together. And if you go down a few verses, it says that the Word became flesh, dwelt among us, and goes on to say that it's Jesus. So Jesus is the Word. He is God. He was before all of creation. In fact, he created all things, is what it says. And because he is the Word. And so then we have the thing that Jesus is man, and he is God.
Yeah, and people doubt the existence of Christ, and this is in seminary and theology circles. This is the search for the historical Jesus, not necessarily the divine Jesus, but the historical. As a man, this Jesus of Nazareth, was he an actual human being? And that's almost indisputable. I would say it is indisputable that you cannot argue with historical evidence, naturalistic evidence that says, yes, this man, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Mary and Joseph, brother of James, existed. That this was a real human being who existed. And so to me, that puts that one to bed pretty quickly. The two biggest questions around Jesus that I think are where the discussion should focus is on his divine nature and his resurrection. Right? Those are the two most important pieces.
So in the Bible, it says that Jesus lived a perfect life, that he's the only man to ever have done that. It says that no one is good, not even one, except for Jesus. And that is the reason why he is able to pay the price, why he is able to be the sacrifice, because he is the perfect lamb, he is the perfect sacrifice, and no other person fit that description. Is it Revelation that says, who can open the scrolls?
I don't have Revelation memorized that well.
But it's who can, wherever the passage is, it's who can fulfill this, who can pay the price. And it says the lamb that was slain before the foundation of the world. Yeah. And so we believe that Jesus is that lamb, that he is the only one who could pay the price. So we believe that Jesus lived a perfect life, that he fulfilled all the prophecies in the Old Testament about himself. And he refers to those throughout his ministry, that he does things so that the words of God may be fulfilled. So he fulfills prophecy, and then he gets disciples to follow him, and he has this ministry that lasts about 3 years, and culminating in his death, and on the third day that he rose again. And that's really, that instance is what sets it apart, for Jesus apart from everything else. I mean, even if somebody else said that they lived a perfect life and they were, this special person or whatever, nobody has ever raised themselves from the dead.
Nope. No, there are mythical stories of that happening, but there is little to no evidence around those stories. And if you compare those stories with the stories, and I can't think of any of them off the top of my head, but if you compare those stories to the stories around Jesus Christ, there is ample evidence. There's many witnesses that are outside of the realm of normalcy, that there's no comparing the witnesses of Christ's resurrection to the witnesses of any other stories that are out there. So then we can stand on a truth claim from the Christian standpoint that nobody, what Joe just said, nobody has raised themselves from the dead. There is no evidence of that outside history. Now, some people would say, well, yeah, neither Jesus, but you know.
Yeah, and if Jesus did everything that he did, and we have documented it, but if he died and he did not raise himself from the dead, then we would have no hope.
Yep.
Then he wouldn't be who he said he was.
And we would need a new hope.
What?
We would need a new hope.
Baby Yoda.
This is the way.
This is the way. We're kind of obsessed with The Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's a good show. Anyway, so
I'm not even that big of a Star Wars fan. I really like it though.
I know you guys are going to hate me for this, but I love Star Wars. I love the world. I love the games. I love the idea. I have not liked any of the movies. I just haven't, and they just don't feel like they make enough sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
They don't follow the rules in the world well enough for me. Anyway, I love The Mandalorian. I think it's a great show. It's refreshing not to see lightsaber fighting people constantly.
And there's a lot of content and storyline to it. It's not just like gratuitous action continuously or gratuitous CGI and stuff like it. There's a storyline.
And bigger than all of those. Bigger than how cool he is. Bigger than his armor. Baby Yoda.
Oh my gosh, that thing is adorable.
Who has no name. Just like our first show.
The Child.
Yeah. Walmart accidentally released it on their website on Monday, a plush toy. And then removed it a couple hours later. And it was literally under Baby Yoda because they don't have a name for him yet. And
well, there's a whole lot of speculation that this series, the Mandalorian series, is going to tie a lot of things in the Star Wars universe together. Like that is one of Favreau's intent, is to like we will maybe sometime see what the species of Yoda and Yaddle were. There's a theory out there that this child is the offspring of Yoda and Yaddle.
And okay, Disney, why isn't there anything to buy right now? Because I want to buy and make a bed out of Baby Yoda.
I don't
just
want
a plush
I don't
bed
want to
where
buy
I can,
any of these things for my children. I want them for myself.
Yeah, I just want to lay down in a bed of Baby Yodas. I want to put
That's
some
disturbing.
on my ceiling. Posters, just Baby Yoda everywhere.
He's that adorable, though. I mean, seriously.
They're just missing out on so much money. It's almost Christmas, guys.
I don't know. Anyway,
they have to have some plan, but I don't see it.
So, okay, so let's ask the question. So why, in nearly 2020, is the question of who is Jesus still debated? I mean, this is a man who lived as a human 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago. Why are we still debating it to this day? There is no human in all of history who has been studied, examined, debated, and dissected more than Jesus.
Because of the nature of the question, because it is so important. Because if Jesus is who he says he is, that he is the Son of God that came to mediate the relationship between God and man, to welcome us as sons and daughters if we believe in him, then the only response is an insane response. I mean, when Jesus left, like the last thing that he said to the disciples is go throughout all the earth and make disciples. And so we don't really have a concept of disciple today, and we don't have like a frame of reference or any position that's really like a disciple. Like we might have like an intern in our heads, or just this kind of picture, but who he was speaking to, who Jesus was speaking to, had their own image in their head, and that's what he meant for them to have. These guys just spent 3 years with Jesus, and they gave up everything. Like they had their jobs, and then they literally just sort of like, all right, now we're following this guy. We're learning from him. We're devoting our lives to him.
I mean, to put that in context of today's world, imagine you're watching this. I mean, we're at work today. Our work is a little outside the norm, but let's say you're driving a semi truck across the country, and you stop at a truck station, and this guy walks in and says, "You, and you, come with me. I want you to drop everything you have, leave everything that you're doing behind. Don't worry about anything else surrounding your life. Literally drop everything and follow me." And they get up and say, "Sure."
And that's how crazy it is.
That is absolutely ludicrous.
And so we think, in our modern day frame of reference, that we've kind of translated to it that Jesus meant, okay, go tell everybody about me so that they can believe in me. And that's not what he's saying. He's saying make disciples. And because that's really the only response, that the appropriate response that you can have if you truly believe that Jesus is who he says he is to drop your entire life, throw it away, and take up this new life. Jesus says to Nicodemus that we were dead, and the only way that we can even know God is to have this new birth, to have this new spiritual birth, that we were born of a woman, and then we were born of the Spirit, and it's only through Jesus. And otherwise, we cannot know God.
And here's my theory. This is why I think it's still debated. This is why I think. Back this up. This is why I think in the Great Commission and what Jesus is telling us to do is to go make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He is not telling us to go into the world and evangelize necessarily. What he's doing is saying, go bring up people in this way. This is the way. Yeah, I did it again, I know. But this time it actually fits. That he's saying, this is the way. Follow, bring up people in this way to follow me, follow you, or follow me because of the eternal reward that it brings. And I think the reason he's not telling us to go into the world and introduce him to people necessarily is because if you back up to a creation narrative, that the knowledge of God, and this is in Romans, I think 6, it's definitely in Romans 1, that the knowledge of God, the inherent knowledge of who he is, that he exists, that in the Imago Dei is imprinted on us as human beings. He's not telling us to go tell people who he is, because inherently in our creation, we already know who he is. Now, you have a choice to either believe or not believe, and the choice is yours, and that's God's nature, and that's why that is my personal opinion on the Great Commission. Why we're not told, go into all the earth and convince them to believe that I am Messiah. That's not what he says to do. That is flat out not what he says to do. Why? Because the knowledge of God is already imprinted on every creation that God has ever created. It's inherent in who we are.
Well, and Jesus didn't go around trying to convince people that he was who he says he was. In fact, Jesus did the opposite many times. He made it more difficult for people to follow him. I mean,
and I think he would ask questions. You know how sometimes when you're making an argument, you can turn to somebody and say, "Are you trying to convince me or yourself?" Right? I think that's what Jesus was doing. And you look at all the questions that he asked, like Peter, "Who do you say I am?" He's really getting to a convicting question of asking you to question your own belief.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus went and proclaimed who he was, and that the kingdom was here, and what he was doing, but he didn't sit there and argue with people and try to convince them. And if they were like, "Well, I'm leaving," he's not like, "Whoa, wait, I have this also. This is really attractive." In fact, when people a lot of people were following him, and he could see that they were only there because of the miracles that he was doing and that he fed them and different things, he literally would say things like, "You have to eat my body and drink my blood if you want to follow me." Mm-hmm. And then people would leave. He let them. Yep. And, he turned to the 12 disciples and said, "Aren't you going to leave too?" And they said, "Lord, where else do we have to go?" And, and if we stick it out and see everything in context, yes, Jesus wasn't saying that you had to literally eat his body and drink his blood. Right. It's in reference to his sacrifice that we remember through communion, because we have to take part in his sacrifice. It's his body and his blood that was shed for us.
Right, just like when we celebrate our birthdays, we don't go watch a video of our birth.
Yeah, so, But the thing is, yeah. So that brings us on to the next point of this is why this is so important, is that it is offensive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
It's offensive to people because if they have to make a decision about this, then what Jesus is saying is that he's the only way. That excludes everything else.
And that begs the question is, okay, well, if Christianity is going to make this big of a truth claim that it is the only way, and Jesus makes the claim, not Christianity, but Jesus made the claim, it says that it refutes the idea that, well, all religions on earth basically teach the same thing. No. No, they don't.
We have Jesus as a figure in many different religions.
Mm-hmm. Islam, Judaism.
Yeah, he's a prominent figure in Islam. Even people like, if you go to India and Hindu people, they'll have Jesus sitting there on their dashboard. They'll think that, oh yeah, he's just another God. He's another great teacher. He's a great man. But when you look at the words of Jesus, you're really left with a couple options. Either that he is who he says he is, or he's insane or evil. Because his followers, they believed in who he was, and they believed in who he said he was, and they went to their deaths because of it. Mm-hmm. So we're not really left with the idea that they're in on this. Like,
right. So again,
if they did go in on this and they died because of it, then they're just dumb.
Keep putting the story together in modern context, right? So I'm in my office. Some guy walks in, says, you, drop everything, come with me. Well, what if I want to go back to let me go talk to my dad. No, don't worry about that. I want you to give that up. Come with me. Okay, but I was supposed to have dinner with my dad this evening. Don't worry about that. Come with me. And they say, okay. And then maybe a year goes by, 2 years goes by, 3 years goes by. This guy that you blindly followed dies, comes back to life. Then you go start talking to people and they say, you're absolutely crazy. In fact, what you're doing is so offensive and so bad. If you don't renounce it right now, I'm going to kill you. Most people, if you were following a cult or anything, would say, fine, kill me. I'm sorry, wouldn't do that.
They wouldn't say
they would not say kill me.
They'd be like, you're right. No. I was in this for the money. Yes. I was in this for the fame. I'm out. I renounce it. He was just a man. Like, he didn't actually raise from the dead or whatever. But
these are people, and Christians today.
The 12. Yeah. Of the 12, historically, we know at least
11.
11,
12.
It's like 10 or 11. It doesn't matter. Most of them died,
martyred,
crucified, beheaded. All these different things happened, and not only that, those are the people that directly saw these things happen. We know that even right after that, so many Christians were killed. Even by Paul, who became an apostle.
So keep going with the modern context, right? You also have people, this is ancient context. If you look at Rome and Emperor Nero and how the persecution of Christians was going on, if you look backward just a few centuries, you have the disciples, you have Jesus himself crucified. You have several hundred years of believers saying, yes, I know you have killed everyone who professes this. I don't care. I'm still going to follow Jesus. But if you do, Nero's going to kill you. I don't care. I can't not proclaim the gospel. I can't not follow this Christ, even if it means my death. I don't care. Right? We take that attitude for granted in the Western world because we're not going to be killed for our faith. For the most part, we're not going to be killed. But you go to, some countries in Africa, you go like Uganda, Rwanda,
Middle East,
the Middle East, where you absolutely will be killed. Or at a minimum, if you go into like places like China, even if you're not killed, you're going to be arrested. You're going to be socially killed. Your job prospects are going to be nothing. And these are people who are saying, I don't care. I cannot renounce my belief in Jesus Christ. I don't care.
And so in that way, I feel that that's evidence towards towards Jesus being who he says he is. And it's definitely evidence towards those people believing that Jesus is who he said he was. And so those are people that had direct eyewitnesses. So you can say, okay, well, I don't believe them. They were crazy or whatever. But you still have to go back to Jesus and make the decision. Is he insane? He literally said that before Abraham was, I am. Claiming the name of God that was given to Moses, claiming that he was before Abraham, who is the father of Judaism, who is the father of the promise, who is the father. Everybody in Jerusalem would have considered him the father of their faith.
And the biggest thing about that statement in John 8 is what happens right after he makes that claim. So now some people will say that, well, that's not Jesus claiming he's God. That's just him claiming his existence. Then why did knowledgeable Jews, people who knew the Torah like the back of their hand, pick up rocks and start to stone him? Why? Because the word I am, the claim he was making is I am God.
They 100% thought that. And if we look at the words, that's what it says. And that's what they took it as. So, and they're not going to
kill somebody who wasn't blaspheming the name of God.
If Jesus wasn't making that, absolutely. If Jesus wasn't making that claim, and they start to stone him, wouldn't he been like, "Hey guys, actually, I see how you could have taken me out of context there. Let me. I'm not saying I'm God. Let me tell you what I actually mean. Blah 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 blah. Whatever he would say to defend himself to not die." But that's not what he did. He said that specifically to make that point and so that they would know exactly what he meant.
Right. And then John, and I'm reading this right now, John 10, verse 30, I and the Father are one. Immediately, the next few verses up to 10:33, it says, "We are not stoning you for any of these claims," replied the Jews, "but for blasphemy, because you, a mere man, claim to be God." The Hebrew word there, I don't remember it, but it's not to say a God, because that doesn't really exist in Hebrew or Greek, or Aramaic for that fact. But he was making a claim to be capital G, Jehovah, and he is God, he is Elohim. That's the claim he was making, and they knew it.
He didn't even say, I am God.
Right.
He said, I am. Which is even more crazy, honestly, in that day, because of the way that they viewed that word. That was such a revered word that they wouldn't even write it all out, right?
Yep.
I mean, it was so revered that they knew what it was when they wrote it out, but they didn't write it out completely because it was.
And even the word we attribute Yahweh isn't really a word. It's a
no. We're not even 100% sure how it's pronounced,
right?
Because they didn't write all the letters. I've heard it reasons why it's pronounced different ways, but it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that's what Jesus was saying, and there's really no other way to take it. And that's not only the only time he claims to be God. That's just the absolute most clear one that we have in the Bible. And we know that.
And then the other clear examples are when the men closest to him, who are also historically proven to exist, Peter, Paul, John, Bartholomew, James, these men existed. When they're faced with him and he asks them, "Who do you say I am?" "Well, you are the Son of God. You are Messiah." He doesn't correct them. He doesn't say, "Oh, well, hang on a second, Peter. No, I'm not Messiah. I'm just a really great teacher and prophet that you should respect me." He doesn't correct them. When they make the claim that he is God, the Son of God, Messiah, he doesn't correct it.
Peter says, he says, who do you say that I am? And Peter says, "You are Christ, Son of the living God." And Jesus doesn't say, whoa, that's not actually who I am. He said, "Blessed are you, Peter, because man didn't reveal this to you, God did."
God did. And on that proclamation will come the entire church. My bride will be brought together with God because of the claim that you have just revealed, not even known, you just revealed it, that I am God.
So as we wrap this up, this question, we believe that it is the most important question. And it's really a question that everybody has to answer for themselves. And so if you don't know, if you're unsure of the answer to that question, I challenge you to seek out the answer.
Yeah. I think a good place is if you're watching this video and you're still, you want to explore some of the things we've said a little bit more, which again, we said this in every single video, that is our heart, that you do study these things yourself. I would begin personally with C.S. Lewis. I think, especially because of his history, because of he, a avowed atheist turned one of the greatest theologians in history, right? Mm-hmm. That his Mere Christianity, his books on Christianity and who Christ was, they're easy to understand. He lays out analogies very clearly, and he's theologically correct.
Yeah, and as far as the Bible goes, the book of John is always an amazing place to start. Tells all about Jesus, his life, from a little bit different perspective than the other Gospels, but still right in line with everything. And so that's a really, really good place to start. But again, I just challenge you to answer the question for yourself. Don't just go and watch one YouTube video that agrees with what you already believe. Watch 100. Read the Bible. Read everything you can, and answer the question for yourself.
And truthfully, even if you don't consider yourself a praying person, put God to the test. I have enough faith in God to know that if you proclaim, okay, God, I want to believe this about Jesus, but I don't, reveal something to me, I think it'll happen. It'll happen in His time, but it'll happen.
Well, thanks, guys. As always, what were you going to say?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. See, I'm saying thank you now. Don't forget to comment below, subscribe. Anything that you want us to answer, we will do that. And we'll see you next time.